Hi everybody, this is my very first YouTube video, and welcome aboard. I'm prompted to record Amtrak stories because a few days ago on an Amtrak Facebook page that I follow, a person posed the question, what are some of your most memorable Amtrak stories? And I thought, well God, I've got a lot of them, but they're too many and they're too numerous to type out. So I thought I might make some videos about the stories, and there's nothing dramatic, but they're experiences, let's say, and share them here. So I don't know how well this will go. Like I say, it's my very first attempt. I'm recording it on my phone. If the phone rings, if people send me text messages, if someone walks in the room, we'll be interrupted. But in the meantime, I figured let's give it a shot. So although I do have a lot of stories, I've been privileged to have traveled throughout a lot of the network, throughout America and a little bit into Canada. There are some stories I suppose that are a little bit more exciting than others. I guess probably an interesting story to start out with would be when my friend moved out to Milwaukee. There are actually a few stories pertaining to that about Amtrak, but I'll tell you this one. In July of 2000, I was traveling between Detroit, where I live, to Milwaukee to visit my friend who had moved there. And so I took the Wolverine from Detroit to Chicago, and then I transferred to the Hiawatha and ran up to Milwaukee. That is ultimately what happened. But on the way to Chicago from Detroit, somewhere around Kalamazoo, I would guess, the train stalled. And to this day, I don't know what happened. And although at the time I may have cared to find out, circumstances and the sequence of events caused me to really not care. During the trip, I was sitting at the window. I always try to get nearest to the window. And a guy came along and sat down next to me. It was pretty full. And then just across the aisle was a red-haired girl. And I wouldn't really have paid attention to either of them per se, except for the fact, again, the trip progressed the way it did. As soon as I got on in Detroit, a woman was right behind me in line. And she was kind of remarkable in that she was really thin. I would say she was probably in her 50s at the time. She had stringy, bleach blonde hair, jeans, whatever t-shirt. She looked average, but in kind of a grimy sort of way. Well, no sooner does the train leave and start to fill up, she starts walking up and down the aisles of the coach, the different coaches, with these flyers. And she handed them out to each passenger. She handed them out to me and my seatmate. She handed them out to the red-haired girl across the aisle, everyone. And we looked at the pamphlets, and the pamphlets were actually blue construction paper, folded in half, Xeroxed on all sides, and it had a picture of a barnyard white domestic chicken on the front of it. Just a chicken running along. And it said, "Save the domestic American chicken." And on the inside of this pamphlet were bullet points. All the reasons why one should become active in the work that it takes to save the domestic American chicken. Of course, this linked into some issue with Tyson, the chicken producer in Arkansas, and Bill Clinton when he was governor. And it really didn't matter to me. I thought it was funny. I really thought it was funny. And my personal nature is such that I can't help but, take a jab here and there. And I must have made some kind of offhanded comment to my seatmate. He started laughing. and then we started to share jokes, and then the girl across the aisle picked up on it, and we shared jokes. So that was just a brief little interlude in what we thought would be a very traditional, typical trip. Well, not very long after that, round about Kalamazoo or so, the train stalls. It absolutely stalls. And I figure, well, I can tolerate this. I like trains. There's, the cafe car should be good to go. I can wait. Well, the train was parked, interestingly enough, on this curve. And it's a high-speed line, the Wolverine line. It hits up to 110 miles per hour on some segments. So, of course, the train banks into curves. So we were stood in a curve at a slight angle. So if you can imagine the train as a tube, right, you can, look through it. It looks like a snake, like a big curve. So dealing with that, I went back to the lounge car. I said, well, let me get a sandwich. They said, sir, they said, all of our equipment is out. Matter of fact, we're making arrangements to bring food on the train as soon as we can. We're going to be here for a few hours. Well, lo and behold, we were there for a few hours. But also, lo and behold, Amtrak did provide, they brought on food from McDonald's. Well, what did they bring on? They brought on French fries. They brought on a big old cooler of orange drink and a big mound of chicken sandwiches, McChicken sandwiches. So, of course, everyone comes back and grabs their complimentary handful of McDonald's. I decided to sit in the lounge with the red-haired girl and the seatmate. We all three chatted and ate our chicken. Well, shortly thereafter, here comes this blonde, stringy-haired woman who had been passing out her construction paper flyers touting why we should save domestic American chickens. She was hungry. She came to the lounge looking for food. Well, of course, you know what she saw. She saw that mound of chicken sandwiches. Well, the whole train stopped. Everyone in that car, what had been sort of a party atmosphere, turned into literally like somebody walks into a bar and the record scrapes to a stop. Everyone looked at her. She looked back at us. And she reached out and grabbed 2 chicken sandwiches, one with each hand, clutched them toward her breast, and burst into tears. And she ran out of the car. Well, how do you respond to that? Poor woman. You can make some jokes. It is what it is. So we went back to our coach and we sat. And after a while, of course, the woman reappears. She comes out of the bathroom and her makeup, or her eyeliner is just all right down her face, all over her cheeks. She had sobbed, cried, and apparently gone to the bathroom and eaten her chicken sandwiches. Either that or she had some kind of prayer ceremony for them and flushed them. But, yeah, that was interesting. Never seen anything quite like that. But then, interestingly enough, several years later, I was reading just some random newspaper, and I saw a picture of the chicken lady. And she had been arrested along with a PETA organization for doing something she shouldn't have been doing with respect to trying to save domestic American chickens down in Arkansas. Go figure. Funniest stuff. Now, as an incidental, 2 things. We, of course, did make it to Chicago and did manage to make it to Milwaukee. But that red-haired girl actually ended up introducing me to my ex-wife. And we were together for 8 years. And, that was 12 years ago now when that ended. But interesting train trip, isn't it? That's an Amtrak story. It's an Amtrak experience. There are more, but that's an example. These aren't real exciting, folks, but they are stories for what they're worth. Others will be more exciting. But for now, that's where I'll leave it. Thank you for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye.